so there are some practical strategies that white coaches and mentors can take to improve their openness to the discussion of ethnicity in the cross ethnicity context, and also to improve coaching relationships within that context. So the first, and I think the most important thing, is that white coaches and mentors, we need to do some very serious self-reflection on our ethnicity. So we need to really try and understand what it means to us to be white. So a person of color, I think, you know, they're forced to reflect on their ethnicity all the time because of the white world that has been created around them. Whereas white people it's one of our privileges that we don't really have to think about our ethnicity. So for us to think about what being white has meant across the various stages of our lives, how it has affected our education, our career, our prospects, you know, maybe even where we live, our relationships with institutions like the police, health service, etc. Also, I think it's important for us to think about where we might be guilty of prejudice or discrimination. So one example, I think, is, you know, thinking about, you know, if you've had the opportunity to be involved in hiring people or promoting people, you know, sometimes we're guilty of encouraging and hiring people who we see ourselves in. So to understand that causes discrimination, you know, when you're a white person. Yeah, so to awareness of things like that, that we're often, you know, we don't think we're doing anything wrong by thinking, oh, I click with that person, but why are you clicking with that person? You know, is that anything to do with ethnicity? I think that's really important. The other thing is as well is to try and learn and try and understand about other ethnic heritages. So if you have, you know, friends and family who are comfortable discussing ethnicity, then to seek them out and have discussions with them about what it's like, you know, in the world, what it's like talking to you about ethnicity, and, you know, seeking out understanding in other ways. You know, there's amazing books, fiction and non-fiction, about the experience of being in various ethnic heritages and, you know, living in the UK. So we often have a better understanding of what it's like to be Black living in America, and compared to the experience of various people of colour living in the UK, which is a different experience. So yeah, so that to me is a very important practical step that white coaches, I think, need to do. And it's certainly something that I've really had to really kind of throw myself into in order to carry out this study. The second is how important it is to have an awareness of the power dynamic within the coaching relationship. Now, how a coachee of colour, if they've grown up in Western culture, you know, the experience they've had of discrimination and kind of unequal opportunities. And to make sure that you don't kind of reenact that disempowerment within the coaching space. And there are a few strategies which I think can help, but every single relationship will be different. Every coach will be different, every coachee will be different. But I think these strategies hopefully can help. The first is to establish very early on in the relationship what a coachee's preferred terms for their ethnic background is. And as one coachee said to me, it's very important not to use a term that suggests that they are less than. And each coachee may have a different preference for how they want their heritage to be addressed. And it's certainly not for a white coach to decide or determine what that is. The second is to provide space for discussions related to ethnicity. I've already said previously that these can be very difficult discussions, but it's important to provide the space, because discussions of ethnicity can be pertinent to why your coachee is coming to see you. And also we know from research that discussions related to ethnicity are very important for, for maintaining the relationship and for goal achievements within the coaching space. But your coachee might not want to discuss ethnicity, and that is should be totally within their control, and that's really important. That they control when these discussions take place and how they take place. I found that being open to my own relevant identities helped demonstrate kind of my openness to discussion about various identities, including ethnicity. So being open about your own identities, whether that's your gender, your sexuality, your whether you have a disability, whether you're a parent, etc. And also that when ethnicity does come up, to be attuned to it, to listen to it, to be curious about it, and obviously to be kind when these topics come up. Another important strategy for maintaining equitable power balance within the discussion is to ask for feedback, to make sure your coach has multiple opportunities to give you feedback, so that they have the opportunity to point out any microaggressions or transgressions that you may have made. I'm sure they wouldn't be deliberately, but these things happen in cross-ethnicity conversations all the time. If you haven't given the coachee an opportunity to feedback, then you miss an opportunity to repair the damage that you may have done, and kind of closing down the relationship otherwise, if you don't. An important thing that came up within my study was the importance of similarity of identities. So my coachee said that their first choice to be coached by would be a woman who is a person of color. Their second option would be a white woman, or a man who was a person of color. And they were very clear that they were sorry, I should have pointed this out, all my coachees were women, sorry. They said that they would not be coached by a white man, and that they felt that the power difference was too stark between them as women of color and a white man. My last point would be that it's very important as white coaches that we advocate for changes within the coaching industry, so that the coaching space no longer becomes a white dominant space that feels unwelcoming to our coachees of color and our coaches of color. So that would be my main kind of points about how to improve our relationships and coaching conversations with coaches of color.